Hello, I'm Tam BOTC channel, and I know what you're seeing of the title. I don't want to make another ridiculous title, so you can insert, in my opinion, wherever it's appropriate in that title. But I've made a long-ass titles, and I don't want more, and I'm not very great at them, in honesty. And I want you to keep a couple of things in mind when you're watching this, and if you decide to continue to watch it. But keep in mind, if you love the game, continue loving the game. If you have different perspectives and stuff, there are different ways you can share your opinion, especially in the comments, without having to do it in a rude or nasty way, like name calling and such, or having to stroke your ego and technically say you know better than another person in a very egotistical, rude, and nasty way. There are ways to get around that stuff without looking that way. You have choices in games, but in real life, where you do still have choices, it's probably better not to make yourself look unprofessional and like a jerk in front of tons of other people that may come by. And I know I'm not a very big channel, hence why I don't think it would have much effect anyways, so what's the point of attacking a smaller channel? It doesn't feel like there's a point being proven there in the first place. But there are different ways you can construct your criticisms or your perspective or opinion without having to do those things. This is real life. This isn't a game anymore when it comes to that stuff in the comments and such. I've had some nasty people. I've only deleted one comment because it was doing a little bit of both. Otherwise, I haven't really deleted any other comments. It's not something you have to think about the other person's mental health and well-being as well, because you don't know how you affect them unless that is your motivation in the first place, which don't even bother. Don't even freaking bother. It's not going to work here. Don't bother in the first place. I want to leave it at that. So let's get into this. So I actually was trying to make a video, so with the gameplay footage. I've been having trouble trying to upload it. I also didn't feel like I got to talk about everything I wanted to. And I've had been sick lately, but I should be doing fine now for the most part. But yeah, I had some problems lately, and then my video I felt like it was incomplete or something. I might even feel the same way after this video, but I'll try to get to things and try to not make this video too long, because that video was like 40 minutes and I still didn't feel like I talked about everything I wanted to. I even tried to write that in the description, but since the video didn't go up or didn't work, I chose to make this video instead. And I know it's crappy quality, I'm sorry for that. This is just on my phone in a bedroom. Kind of nostalgia critic background going on. But let's talk about like RPG elements. So I actually looked up a top 10 worst open worlds in games, and where other games have like those kind of quirks with like glitches and stuff. It's kind of like what Terrorizer and Nogla said about Lethal Company when they were watching some memes of Lethal Company and such. Like, you kind of need that jinx sometimes. And some of these games have that and are really fun. I think getting rid of most of the jink actually reveals a lot of other problems with Cyberpunk, and I don't doubt that they'll possibly fill in those problems, but I still feel like you could apply the logic that Radical Soda said in his Sonic Ultimate review, both the beginning stuff he said about Sonic Ultimate and the ending stuff, and apply that to Cyberpunk. But I want to get into the RPG stuff as well as just some goofy stuff. Like, first off, when it comes to, people have complained about other RPGs having like the word flirt next to options and stuff. Cyberpunk does very similar, if not other stupid things. First off, you got color-coded dialogue. And then second, you do have the words thing, like whether it's Corpo, Street Kid, or Nomad, which honestly don't matter most of the time. It will probably apply to stealth or going guns a-blazing options, but it's the weight of it's never felt. And speaking of weight, a DLC as well as the gameplay from your perspective, it feels like it's pulling most of the weight of what the rest of the game should be doing. And I don't feel like that rest of the game's pulling enough of that weight, and I'll get into more of the stuff as we go. It's a bouncy bed. But I always found it kind of goofy and hypocritical complaining about other games' frickin' dialogue system when this one's just as corny. And doesn't matter most of the time. There's only so few, like, basically blue is extra stuff to say. Yellow is just continue the conversation, please. There's also, of course, the stuff that affects gameplay elements, like there's still a lot of missions where you have to follow an NPC somewhere. Sometimes it even forces you to slow down even further, which is kind of annoying. And then there's, of course, the fricking driving segments, where GTA had you drive most NPCs around. It does the opposite, along with tons of exposition. There's so much exposition in this frickin' game that it makes something like 80% if beat 'em ups was right. But it makes a Christopher Nolan movie look like it's doing more show than tell than this game is. That's frickin' embarrassing. I felt like the world of Cyberpunk looked cool from the outside, but actually traversing it and stuff, even via vehicle. And why aren't there flying cars? I'll get to that in a sec. And mods aren't good. Like, there needs to be more than just that. Just you flying a car. There needs to be air traffic and stuff. More, at least, than that it already has. And a tram system, as well as fixing the bike controls, are not enough, in my opinion. It's something that, and another word I want you to take seriously when it comes to CD Projekt Red is priority. It doesn't feel like they took certain things into important priority enough that quickly, and it ends up being, it feels empty and hollow. I keep hearing something. Yeah, keep hearing something behind me. But yeah, it just feels kind of empty and hollow. And sorry about that. I should edit something like that out, but whatever. I was trying to listen. There's something, I thought I heard something behind me. We've had animals in the walls before. It sucks. But getting back to Cyberpunk. I've given Cyberpunk a lot of chances, and I've seen from YouTube channels to just fans of Cyberpunk. I feel like the way Cyberpunk fans, at least the ones that are doing the kind of stuff, I'm not saying all Cyberpunk fans, but it feels like Cyberpunk's used in like very hostile ways, and it's just ridiculous how Cyberpunk has been overbloated. There is, of course, a lot of other fan bases that are awful. Probably even worse for sure. But goddamn, like, I also feel like Cyberpunk was way too easily forgiven, and you could honestly say that the 3-year time that it had was that time to give it that forgiveness. But when it came to the the DLC and such actually coming out, I feel like people were quick to jump to saying that the game was also better. I felt like the game was very empty. There's enemies that are scattered around, and most of the time you have to be the one to antagonize them in the first place. It feels like the gameplay, once again, is doing the heavy lifting. It doesn't feel like the enemies are quite exciting enough. And they don't have like that Halo diverse kind of enemy design philosophy and such. They just kind of feel boring, or there's bullcrap moments where you die. Actman has talked about some of this stuff. Speaking of Actman, another thing I remember is him talking about how V is all your role playing as, and I feel like that harms the role play because you're only going to meet certain specific characters that V is allowed to mate or get to know. You can't like go off and meet other people and get to know them or anything. So it's very specified. It's very scripted. It's the opposite of that Pinocchio line where there's no strings on me. There's definitely strings on this goddamn game in a lot of places. While you are free to explore the world, I never found the world exciting. It was really boring. I had that same problem with Outer Worlds where I originally loved that game. It was like a 9 out of 10 originally, but every time I returned to it, it slowly went to an 8 out of 10, a 7 out of 10. I was just like, maybe I should stop playing this because I don't want it to go any lower, my feelings. I keep finding things I don't like about it. Um, and I felt like that same thing with Cyberpunk, except it hurt more because some of the fan base and these YouTubers that are covering the updates kept being like, "Oh, the game's better now." That was like literally a quote. They even have famous actor that's paid a lot and could be paid more elsewhere, Idris Elba, in an ad later say, "By the way, the game's fixed now." So cringy. What the frick is that? It's so dumb. You have good advertisements. I actually think the advertisements do a good job. What the frick did you do there, though? That was cringy as hell. Let the game speak for itself. I feel like people within the community for Cyberpunk just don't have patience at all. They have to constantly repeat the same goddamn thing like they're Groundhog Day. Except that movie somehow doesn't repeat as much as they do. And this is repeating within over 3 freaking years. This is a game that spent time baking in the oven, so to say, for 8 to 9 years, and then an extra 3 years to set their priorities. Why wasn't certain things their priorities then during that development time, as well as why did it take an extra 3 years, probably even more time from this point, to get to stuff like the tram system or the police system? Why didn't it take that? Why aren't there enemies like gang leaders and stuff wandering the streets? Why don't NPC like civilians have weapons on them and they attack when you provoke them? Why aren't there like robots wandering around or drone traffic, kind of like Watch Dogs Legion, or more air traffic? Like, why isn't it going all Star Wars Clone Wars with all the flying cars everywhere? How is that movie a better Cyberpunk? Even freaking Blade Runner and stuff. It kind of feels like a disgrace to Cyberpunk. And as Manly Reviews has pointed out in his video, it doesn't even feel like it understands the name Cyberpunk. It feels like it's focused on the punk part of it, and it's not even the right kind of punk, too. It feels kind of disgraceful towards the tabletop, even. And I wanted to get to know the tabletop even more. I feel like there are games that better represent the tabletop, like Vampire the Masquerade, or some Dungeons and Dragons game, like the latest Baldur's Gate 3, of course. Even down to having a dice system. I haven't gotten to play that game, but I've watched people play it. It looks fantastic, and I can't wait to play that. Sad that it's not coming to Game Pass. That was the way I thought I would play it, but I'll have to wait till I get my new PC to do that. And I've given Cyberpunk so many chances. The world's empty. Enemies are spread out, and most of the time you have to be the one to provoke them. The AI doesn't feel like it's doing enough heavy lifting. It's kind of boring. I feel like even the lore and such, there's really cool lore in Cyberpunk, and it doesn't feel like they give the lore enough time or weight to really give a crap. Either you have lore like synth meat and stuff quickly like talked about and then blend in with all the other exposition dialogue, which a lot of the dialogue's mostly either talking about Arasaka being evil or Johnny Silverhand, something about Johnny Silverhand this or that, or something else, like one of their personal problems when it comes to the romance partners. But it's just freaking ridiculous. You only get to see the iguana in a certain beginning, and then it's gone. You never see a part like that again, and even then, it's not fully explained there. And then it kind of feels like it has that Destiny Halo thing where it expects you to read books. Hell, when the game was noted, it was absolute trash and stuff. Even before the game launched, they were already making comic books and freaking action figures and stuff and other merchandise. It's just like what the hell, this, and signing off on an anime. It's like, what the frick? Focus on the game, you assholes. I know I don't work for one of those companies and I don't know the development process of that stuff, but it does feel like games like No Man's Sky and even Fortnite have been able to accomplish a lot more within a shorter amount of time. And it's just freaking ridiculous. Matter of fact, on that top 10 list, I remember it's like Game Rant top 10 list. No Man's Sky was on there. Maybe replace it with Cyberpunk. No, there are genuinely worse Cyberpunk like open world games, but Cyberpunk's is one that's particularly just it feels very mid while also not having the kind of uniqueness, identity, or fun of how jank other open worlds can be, even if they're terrible. So it just kind of goes in that mid pile. And from empty, just spread out enemies, an empty ass world. Why aren't there like drones and stuff wandering around? All that. We need more than just cops and such. And you have to aim your gun down in their face to proximity activated dialogue with NPCs. That Aspen Gold video with a clickbaity title saying, "Oh, it's the NPCs amaze the crap out of me." It's a proximity thing, and I think most people are going to experience that. And even if they don't, whatever. But like, I just never felt like they did enough. I feel like there should be more like of the corporations and stuff. And kind of, I think another problem, detriment to the lore and stuff, is that in order to learn about a lot of these companies and such that exist within the world, why aren't there joinable factions and gangs? Like, there's a lot of throwaway characters that are just kind of there and gone, and or killed off instantly within the playing the part within the story. And it kind of feels like why aren't they playing a bigger part? Why can't you choose to join this game? This is an art role playing game, right? Why can't we choose to join these gangs and factions and learn more about them as we go, or get to know the characters within them? We get to do that with other games older than this. This game doesn't have the same freaking uh, um, apology ticket that Skyrim got back in the day. Skyrim was born during a time where games were trying to appeal to multiple audiences. Uh, but when it came to Cyberpunk's born during a time where they should have learned from that freaking crap and didn't. And it's just freaking ridiculous. You look at how like Resident Evil 6 is the example of how to do it wrong, to where Skyrim is how to do it right, for example. Now, uh, other things that I would have to go into. There's also, I want to talk about the evil corporation. I feel like because you can't join gangs or have that involvement and stuff, and that they're just kind of there and gone. Like, I don't get to know more about Militech. I have to go on a wiki or find a chip that doesn't still give me enough information, or I just don't care and I kind of forget it afterwards. I always felt the clothing was really boring in the game too. It's kind of got that Division 1 problem where it just looks like a bunch of generic clothes. And then there's NPCs that are either over the top or generic looking. It just kind of feels like this is a world that should be more creative than it actually lets on. And it's just kind of ridiculous. Um, it feels like it should be more over the top when it's not, and it should have more going on. It needs to show the serving purpose with a lot of the different cybernetics and such, and it just doesn't go into that. You have stupid uh, like vertical tail lights or whatever, or symmetrical tail lights on a freaking back of a pickup truck, and it's just ugly for the sake of ugly. There's other stuff like that. There's a lot of the look, but never the feel. And my friend has words to say. He can't say them, of course, in this video. He's not here. But he absolutely hates traversal in Cyberpunk. He thinks the map is awful. He thinks traversing in general in the freaking city area alone is just a nightmare. Most of the quests, other than the ones where it's V role playing. Also, I feel to get to another thing, Keanu Reeves kind of feels like he's phoning it in a lot, and you can tell they wrote a lot of the story. Like even when this game's on sale, you're still paying more for the main game than you are for the DLC and such. And that DLC, just like Shivering Isles back in the day for Oblivion, you shouldn't be picking up the slack for the game. The game needs the game on its own still needs to be really good. The DLC shouldn't be picking up that slack and doing most of the heavy lifting. Um, and with Keanu Reeves, I feel like Keanu Reeves isn't that knowledgeable with voice acting. Of course, he had like Toy Story 4 and such, but other than that, it was kind of like the Peter Dinklage situation with Destiny 1, where it's like this guy clearly hasn't really done this before, or even the guy from Halo 5. And it feels like he knows stage acting or how to act in front of a camera more than he does like voice acting. He's not as familiar with that. So it just kind of comes across that way. And most of the stuff you're shown of Johnny Silverhand makes him look like a unlikable dickhead. Same with V. And I know you can sway the dialogue to make them sound less of one, but man, the dickhead stuff sticks with you more, and it's just even Manly Reviews talked about this. But you just needed more interesting characters. But I think because of those previous things I mentioned, the world just feels so flat and lifeless, boring. There's also, people are discovering there's some level balancing issues with enemies and such within the game. It's almost got that freaking, or level scaling. It's got that problem of Oblivion almost. um, yeah, and I just never found interesting locations that make me go, ooh, what's this? Like, there's the one scene everybody's gonna see where you walk out and you see the entire city from this one area, but then you have nothing that feels like that ever again. It's like one cool moment, and it's gone after that. They kind of throw their best hand of cards because the beginning is supposed to set stuff up. They set up if you choose Corpo, you really only get to see the corporation be evil for a very brief moment, other than that one part with Johnny Silverhand, where he's trying to take the place down and he gets captured. Other than that, you really only see them be evil at the beginning and then the very ending, and nothing feels like it's accomplished, and you have crappy ass endings that you're leading to, and knowing that you're leading to those crappy ass endings, it doesn't make it any better. Once again, the DLC has to do the heavy lifting for that too. And it just doesn't do enough. Now, I've seen really crazy gameplay things that people have pulled off in Cyberpunk, and it's really cool, but I mean, that's nothing that I haven't seen people find crazy exploits and stuff, or crazy ways to play other games, like Fear and Max Payne and such. Like, I've seen some crazy stuff with all games, and you have to realize not everybody's going to dedicate the time to be able to learn how to do that crazy stuff and to time that stuff, and not everybody's quite built the same like that. You also have to realize that just because a game has tiny details it does better than others, the focus is story and character development. That stuff shouldn't be the main focus of why a game's great. Something like Just Cause, yeah, but that's because almost a giant percentage of the game is focused on the destructibility. Same with like Red Faction. But when it comes to some of the physics in this, it shouldn't be the only thing people are focusing on, yet it sometimes feels like it is. And it's just kind of ridiculous. I know there's a lack of loading screens, which is a good thing, but this world's still boring. I've had times where it's just felt very empty. Like, even civilians aren't entirely walking around. The car controls are weird at times. I hope they do fix that. I still think this game needed time for people to really give it that time to be awesome, instead of immediately being like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Like, I feel like people didn't give it enough time, and that there's people like me, Manly Reviews, Ackman, there's a phone going off, and so many others that it's just wondering if that's gonna be, because I don't know if that's gonna be recorded in the video. So, but yeah, I want to over actually, so that so that hopefully that audio in the background doesn't get captured on the frickin' video, and I'll have to talk a little louder than the audio going on in the background. Shut up! Anyways, but I feel like a lot of that stuff contributing to the problems with the game. For me, like, I had a hard time immersing myself. Having no loading screens, like, I've asked, like, can you name something, like, of likes and interests of a lot of the characters, like Judy and stuff? Or could you name, excuse me, could you name, like, if you walked on foot from one side of the map to the next, is it really that great to explore? It just didn't have a lot of that, ooh, what's that over there kind of thing that, like, other games had. And I don't know. This world was just really boring to me, no matter what guns it threw at me. Like, I also want to come back to the clothing thing because I know I'm kind of disorganized and all over the place with what I'm talking. I hope you can still focus on that stuff. But with something like, say, the samurai helmets, that's cool. I love that stuff. And once again, I feel like the DLC has to pull the weight of really cool outfits. And when it comes to the actual outfits in the game, it's really generic. You kind of have shirts like the one I'm wearing. There could be a Minecraft shirt in that freaking game and you wouldn't know. It just blends in with all the other shirts that have picture logos and stuff on it. And then we're in other like games that have samurai armor and stuff, like Ghost of Tsushima, you have the cool decorations on the helmet and such. This game just has generic ass helmets that make Darth Vader cry. Because Darth Vader's helmet was based on that stuff. But it's just so sad. It's like you have these cool ass samurai helmets. Hell, there's a lot of samurai advertisement stuff. And one of the lines in the freaking trailer that Johnny Silverhand says is, "Wake the frick up, samurai." And you make some of the lamest samurai stuff. You don't even have like legit body armor, samurai armor and stuff. Until maybe the DLC. I haven't really seen all the armor in it. But it's at least somewhat better than what we've had. But yeah, it's just a game that I feel like a lot of stuff has to pull the weight of it. Let's get to the villains real quick because Manly Reviews describe this much better than I probably can. But take, for example, villains like Ganondorf, Sauron, even Alduin from Skyrim. I know I'm comparing a lot of Bethesda games, and I know what people's general thoughts are going to be. Oh, this is a Bethesda fan. Don't take them seriously. Not all Bethesda fans are dumbasses. There are some constructive ones that can come up with their own, constructive criticisms and such. And I don't think I'm someone that you can just pass by. At least I don't want to think so. But you could just hear me out and let my words speak. I don't know. What else am I supposed to say in that situation? Let the words speak, and you do the deciding. Does that sound cool with you? Is that a good deal? Okay. Hopefully you said yes. But with stuff like Ganondorf, for example, you play a lot of those villages at first, and then when you come to experience them 10 years later after Ganondorf takes over, you see the destruction of that they become and the villainy that he caused. You know, he's set up as a really good threat, and that looming threat of his and such looms over you. And while these games do talk a lot about using the name of Ganondorf or Sauron or whatever, you still see their looming threat. Take Skyrim once again. You see Alduin attack Helgen. Okay. There's a later scene where you see him with Delphine revive dragons from their graves. And from that point on, it helps to let you know that every time you see a dragon in the game, that's caused by Alduin. That's Alduin's doing. While these characters do talk a lot about Alduin, they also were able to show and keep showing because every time you fight a dragon, you now know, hey, that's where it came from. that's where that frickin' enemy terrorizing and killing a lot of the civilians of villages or cities, or when you go to one of those dragon shrines or whatever, that's why. Alduin resurrected them. And with Sauron, it's like he's not only manipulates Saruman through his army of the mark of the white hand of Saruman, and then you got Sauron in the books. I think it's the red eye or whatever of Sauron on their armor, but it's a symbol, and you know that wherever they go, terrorizing villages too, and even though they are talked a lot about, that Sauron do also some manipulating and stuff through Frodo with the ring and such. So there's still a lot of things Sauron's able to accomplish being a big eyeball, even though in the book he's not really a big flaming eyeball on the top of his tower. But yeah, he still shows his tyranny through his actions and what he sends his guards out to the world. Arasaka does none of that, as well as to contribute even further. The fact that I feel like even the anime has to do heavy lifting, telling a lot, delivering more to the world of Cyberpunk, and where a lot of other games have already had that stuff set up and already are accomplished and in those worlds and described to a much better and satisfying extent, while doing their moments of Tama bombadilling, where it leaves some mystery here and there. And yeah, I just feel like because you're getting help from at least two of the most well-known Arasaka at the time employees, like you're trying to get the princess's help or the daughter of the emperor, and then also the right-hand man of the son of the emperor or whatever. And like they're helping you, and it kind of makes you think with the typical big bad company evil story it's doing. Somehow the robots movie does a better job at that. It's an animated kids movie. It feels like it does better job. I know there's other themes in the freaking game, but I really don't think they stand out enough or they execute them well enough to be noticeable, in my opinion. But I mean, once again, there is an interesting thing because even though I say, in my opinion, I know you're like you have to be careful with how you construct things or how you go about